Wilson Morales from Black Film TV talking to writer, director, producer Justin Simien on this new doc, Hollywood Black. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm really good. It's
You
good to
know,
see
as
you
I
again.
as I watched this, I'm like, okay, how come he didn't call me? No, I'm just kidding. You got everybody in that who I know, who knows about film as thoroughly as I think they would know in this.
Yeah.
Um, Putting this together is not an easy feat. There's, the work of a documentary, the credit goes to a lot of editors, if not one, and a storyteller, which is yourself, putting this together along with Donald. How did this come about, and how much of a task was it to get it on screen?
Well, it was definitely, you named it. It was definitely a group effort. I can't even put into words how impossible it is to get a docuseries made, and especially about Black subjects. So this was a labor of love. I think the seed of the idea was 2020. I was sort of in a place of depression around my career, and I was turning to history. Basically just to feel better, frankly. And I began to rabbit hole into aspects of Black cinema history that like I hadn't really come across before. I think it was the George Floyd protests. There were things surfacing and being recovered and restored that just were kind of left to rot before. And I was thinking like, I don't know, maybe I should do like a podcast or something. Cause like I don't want to just read about this. Like I want to talk to folks. I want to have some interviews. I want to watch movies with people. I want to like really dig more. And a friend of mine, Jeffrey Swartz, who is a very successful documentary filmmaker, said, well, why don't you make a documentary series about it or a documentary? And I didn't think I could. And so I was like, well, Jeffrey, why don't you help me? And
Mhm.
we took it to Lionsgate, where my deal was at that time. And I called Donald Bogle and I just started kind of grasping, like, well, how do we put this thing together? Donald Bogle said yes. He had this new book coming out called Hollywood Black. I had read several of his books before, but that was the one that was kind of open for adaptation. We got in touch with Forrest Whitaker's company, and Forrest is like, he is the man over there at MGM Plus, so his name meant a lot. We connected with Radical Media, which is the production house in New York that helped us actually like get the thing made in a practical way. It took many, many people. This project died many times. I mean, truly, like I mourned it and put it in the past several times before it would come back. The strikes happened. I mean, it was nuts, but we just kept taking the next step, and it just felt bigger than me. It really did. It felt like there was another force operating to bring it, and I just was happy to be a part of that.
You can always have these conversations. It's a matter of now structuring it to the point of like, where's the beginning, where's the end? And then I'm looking at, a lot of clips. Those are not easy to get.
Yeah.
And then the talent to get on, to talk about like, it's kind of funny. I'm watching Ryan, and he hasn't seen some of those movies. I haven't seen some of those movies that you talked about in this documentary, and I'm like, okay, we need to re-explore some of these things here.
Yeah.
And so like, what goes into determining the first episode, which is going to get people to watch the rest of it,
Mm.
and how much did you want to pack that in? Because that determines everything else. It's like a series. It's like the pilot's
Yeah.
got to be the one that says, "Okay, I'm with it."
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of massaging. It's a lot of conversations, it's a lot of Black folks sitting on a Zoom or in a room being like, huh, yeah, but we can't leave that out. I
Mhm.
did think for me, it was really important to revisit how people think of the start of cinema. It was super important for me to talk about Burt Williams and to talk about how vaudeville becomes the movies and how much Black culture and the fascination with Black people in America was responsible for that transition. You do not get Charlie Chaplin, you do not get W.C. Fields, you do not get like so much of what people love about the silent era without Burt and without minstrelsy and without all of that stuff. So that was kind of important to tell people the foundation of this thing is actually Black, even though you kind of never see us involved in any of the early, images when people talk about cinema. And then the next thing I felt was really important to revisit was Birth of a Nation and its place in the beginning of feature film making and going in this country, and to show how, yeah, Oscar Michaud was not just sort of this asterisk. Like his career began as a response to that film, and that there were activists and there were people who were like, this is horrendous, and we have to counter this thing called cinema is too powerful. This movie came out, Birth of a Nation, and the KKK came back to life, and people are being lynched all over the country because of that movie. We have to make our movies, and just really important in my mind to set that as the foundation. Um, and then you see through time that pendulum swing back and forth. We gain just a little bit more control of our own narratives, and then they sort of consume and appropriate what we're doing. And then we find a new way to gain some more control of our narratives, and then they consume and appropriate what we're doing. And it felt like it started to fall into a natural rhythm at that point.
I liked how, you brought on producers and cinematographers because it's not just about black actors and directors. We've got
Yeah,
people like a Ruth Carter, and Ernest Dickerson, folks who are still behind the scene working, but they don't really get recognized
yeah,
until down the road, unless you die or get it or nominated for something, you
yeah,
know. And then you have like, okay, where's the story? Like not that long ago, Netflix had a documentary that Elvis Mitchell did,
hmm,
and that only touched upon his aspect. I think it was the '60s, you
yeah.
know,
It was kind of blaxploitation. Yeah,
so from that angle. And so like people want to get an idea as to, not that this is the crux of it all, it's one man's opinion, but until somebody else comes along, this is what we got so far,
yeah,
and you're going to be reminded of Birth of a Nation, of the Five Heartbeats, because as we know, a lot of movies that don't do well at the box office did well afterwards because of the VHS and how we watched it at home, because not a lot of people went to the theaters.
yeah.
Like, there's always those different aspects in terms of like, you want your movie to be, do you want your movie to make money, or do you want it to be seen? You
Right,
know,
right.
and that's where we're at right now. It's like now we're in a position because there is a lot of platforms through streaming services and stuff like that. There's a lot of directors, there's a lot of writers, and so forth. But the question is, are their projects being seen? And that's a whole nother realm of questioning through marketing and so forth. But for you, who started off as a publicist and became a filmmaker, what did you learn in the process of exploring this, researching this, and then putting this together?
I mean, the big aha for me was just that blackness is foundational for cinema also. It doesn't stop at jazz and music. This all kind of came from the same stream of minstrelsy, and us needing to take minstrelsy back, and then them taking, that sort of back and forth I was just describing. But I think one of the other things that sort of was just the sheer amount of brilliant films that I had never heard of before, and that had never bubbled up to the popular culture. We sort of do take for granted that, like, oh, like what has won awards, or what won the box office, or whatever, these sort of metrics to tell us what was important in culture and what was important that was made in a given year, especially with black people and black art. None of that stuff, that can't be the metric. Our stuff gets lost way too easy. It's too fragile. It gets lost to time. It gets buried intentionally. And I like, for instance, Sidewalk Stories by Charles Lane. I couldn't believe that that was a film that wasn't brought to my attention, frankly, or it wasn't in the popular culture conversation. Daughters of the Dust, is one of those films that was kind of on the cusp, but people talked about it enough, and it has this cult status. And then, of course, Beyonce with Lemonade brings a lot more attention to it. But there are so many films and filmmakers that are in that exact same boat, that we are just sort of like, the way it's all talked about kind of keeps it out of our view. I actually think blaxploitation is another example of that. You hear blaxploitation, you think black people being exploited, or you think pimps and hoes. And that just sort of like obscures so much incredible work that was being done then. I think like one of the first beats of this was like, I was out here with bad hair in these streets, in these black horror streets. And the black horror streets are fraught. I don't, just let me tell you, like, you are really like in experimental territory when you start to combine black and horror. And it's not easy to get it right, And I just remember feeling like, oh God, like, I don't want to be like, when Bad Hair came out, it was like, Get Out was the big breakthrough. but it was still felt like we were breaking new ground. And I was like, I don't want to be breaking new ground right now. I want to like feel like I know what I'm doing a little bit more. And then I see Ganja and Hess, and I'm like, ah. Okay, so we've already been here too. We've actually been here. Bill Duke already kind of has been innovating in this space, and I'm not alone. And Jordan Peele is not alone. And we were actually like a part of a continuum. We're part of a legacy. We're part of a style. And I don't know. That for me was very edifying. And the more and more I looked and more I saw, the more I felt that about every genre, about every technique, about the art house, about genres and stories that to this day are really hard to get made as a Black filmmaker. We've already been there.
Talk about breaking new ground. I just got back from San Diego where I saw you, and talk about
Hmm.
breaking new ground. Here you are coming up with a new project along with Tani.
Yeah,
So when we see, oh, Star Trek's got two Black writers creating
I
a new
know.
series.
I
Okay,
know.
that's a first. It doesn't take 60 years to make it happen, but
Yeah.
the evolution. So like, will this having done this and knowing how we need to be seen, when you put together this series of Star Trek, how much of it is going to be, because people will be looking at this like, oh, when you have two Black creators creating it, not that we want it to be a Black show,
Mm.
but they will look to see how much of it is, from who you are as a filmmaker are in the series you're creating.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's where we got to start. I mean, that's what's so cool about working with Tani is we just really get along, like, we just really get each other in some kind of way, and we both are actually true since children, like hardcore trekkers. So I think the first step for us is to just make something that we really want to see, period, without anything else attached to it. Something that just really comes from the heart, comes from a place of love, and comes from who we are and how we think as writers. And then we start to think about representation. Then we start to think about, well, what is it saying? And then we start to think about how might it be used politically once it comes out. But for me, it's just, I think that's the thing that Black artists, we are often not necessarily allowed to do, which is to play and like just come up with the thing that without any sort of sense of what it has to do, financially or otherwise. And that's kind of the stage we're in right now, and it's been very joyful, and yeah, I'm excited, man. I hope I hope it goes all the way, as I say.
My thing is, are you the ultimate geek in terms of the writer, director, producer, watcher? Because obviously at one point you were attached to do a Star Wars, Lando,
Yeah.
and you have to know that stuff. Now you've got Star Trek. And now when you do something like that, oh, he's seen a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Whereas you talk to whether a director, oh, I don't have time, I'm always working. And I'm like, nah, Justin's seen it. Is he that guy that I can do a black test on you and like he knows it? Because I saw your doc. You have to have seen at least 100 movies.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, in some areas, I'm that typical ADHD kid where like there's some things I know way too much about, and then there's things that I'm like, I missed that. I just totally went past my radar. I don't know if I can claim ultimate geek, to be honest. It gets geekier than this for sure. But I will say when I'm excited about something, I'm really excited about it. And when I sort of start to rabbit hole down a certain area, I have to watch everything, I have to see everything, I have to read everything. And I definitely have, pockets of just completely unnecessary knowledge about a lot of random things. And it just so happens I've been able to sort of use that to fuel a career. And I'm really grateful to that. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think I do okay on the test, but I think it gets better than me. I do.
One time, I guess the next time I see you, we'll discuss that. But right now, I want to say congrats on Hollywood Black coming on MGM Plus. Were you satisfied that you were able to get it done in the episodes you got it done with, or do you think you
Yeah.
could have done more?
You could always do more. And there's so many stories that couldn't really go into, didn't have the space or the time. But I am sad. Listen, nobody knows how hard this was to get made. This was it died a lot of times. I didn't know if it would ever make it. I am so proud of my team, the folks at Radical, the MGM Plus people. Like this was a group effort, and I'm just grateful and gobsmacked that it actually is coming out. So
Hey, People will see it. People will talk about it. You know,
That's
obviously,
right.
the people that say you got it all, you missed this or that,
Oh
and
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
forth. You know, there's always those talk. But either way,
Always.
do they do it? This is what we got for now.
This is what we
Congrats
got
again.
for now until the next one wants to pick up this particular baton. This is what we got.
Yep. Have a good one, Justin.
Thanks, Wilson. Appreciate it, man.
Take
Good to
care.
see you.